The BISHOUJO series reimagines characters from popular comic books, games, and movies from a Japanese perspective and transforms them into unique BISHOUJO-style statues. Based on art by illustrator Shunya Yamashita, the series aims to provide figures inspired by Japanese art to fans throughout the world. Since the release of the first BISHOUJO statue in 2009, the series has continued for 10 years and will continue for many more. Keep an eye out for more exciting additions to the ever-expanding BISHOUJO world. When recreating Morrigan in the BISHOUJO style, the key is accurately portraying her as a succubus. What was the creation process like then in designing Morrigan as the character she is, alluring yet mischievously lovable? Watch the behind the scenes of the illustration and sculpting process in this episode. Here is the very first illustration of Morrigan drawn by Shunya Yamashita. And here is the final rough sketch after many discussions with KOTOBUKIYA's product planner, Shogun. The biggest changes made were in her facial expression and hands. Having Morrigan stick out her tongue further in this new expression accentuates her sexy and mischievous character. How the hands are posed was a result of the product planner experimenting with various poses before deciding on Morrigan softly tugging on the fur of her outfit. After polishing the final rough sketch, the illustration stage is complete. The highlights and shadows in the illustration further add allure to her character. We asked 4 questions to the creator of the illustration, Shunya Yamashita. We have this strong impression that you specialize in drawing cute and sexy characters like Morrigan, so was Morrigan actually easy to draw for you? I don't think I'm particularly good at drawing sexy characters per se, but when I draw sexy characters, people around me often say, "Oh, this is very Shunya Yamashita." I think it is the style that I am most known for. The illustration of Morrigan this time was a result of specific posing directions from Shogun. However, it was a difficult pose to draw just from imagination, so I had to use myself as a model to draw some parts such as her arms. Shunya, you must have drawn Morrigan before. Please tell us some highlights of this character and share some of your views. The last time I drew Morrigan was more than 10 years ago, so I don't have much memory except at the time I was drawing her for the top page of my own website. What I think is a major point of appeal for this character is the contrast of her feminine figure paired with the powerful wings on her back. On another note, I have never really drawn characters with their tongue sticking out, so I was really worried if this would go well until I received Shogun's comments. We can tell that the makeup on Morrigan with the eyeshadow and pink lipstick really gives off the signature look for characters in the BISHOUJO series. What was it that you focused on when designing her makeup? Actually, I think in order to further see a character's appeal, having no makeup is also something to consider. But when I do draw characters with heavy makeup, I use female musicians and fashion magazines as a reference. And during the times when I draw characters without makeup, I focus on designing a character with natural makeup instead. It is much more difficult to draw makeup as if there is no makeup, don't you agree? What kind of references do you use when drawing the illustrations for the BISHOUJO series? The main references that I use are pictures that I took myself. In situations such as drawing hands, clothing creases, and complicated poses, photos are really helpful to use as reference. I often use myself as a model in these cases, but for hands, which is as important as the face for body expression, I would ask my wife to model instead. I have asked her to pose holding weapons such as fake swords before. With this, the illustration is complete, and next starts the sculpting process. In the sculpting process, we build on the information seen in the illustration and add further details that can only be accomplished in a three-dimensional scale. For Morrigan, those details can include the texture of the wings, blood vessels, and the creases of her stockings. It is through these small details that her presence as a figure is even more enhanced. The sculpt was created by KOTOBUKIYA, who has worked on many other figures in the BISHOUJO series. KOTOBUKIYA uses a software called ZBrush for sculpting the figures. We have also asked KOTOBUKIYA a few questions. Please tell us your first impression when you saw the illustration. When I first saw it, in many ways I thought, wow, it's a lot. However, up until now, a lot of projects requested that the level of sexiness be toned down, so being able to create a straight-up sexy character was simply exciting for me. What do you keep in mind when trying to make a figure more realistic and lifelike? Do you have any tricks or tips? What I am making is an exaggerated character based on reality, but I try to lightly mix in elements of the actual human anatomy and body curves in various areas. The lines drawn in Shunya's illustration leave subtle but important suggestions of the placement of bones and muscles, so I make sure to reflect those crucial landmarks in a realistic sense within the figure. I think a good approach in making a figure more lifelike is to try recreating the pose yourself. In recreating the pose, you can experience how much weight is on each leg and where the tension lies when the body is twisted to then recreate right on the figure. For Morrigan's non-human body parts like her wings, what did you use as a reference? Bats, of course. But for the bones, I used the shape of bones in the human arm as reference. I also incorporated the twists and curvatures seen in real skeletal structures to make the wings look even more convincing and not toy-like. What was the biggest challenge for you? I have never made a character with such a large bust before, so it was a struggle. At first, I thought, I'll just make enlarged versions of what I usually make. But the balance of body proportions ended up being off, which then began the long journey of trial and error. I made a lot of adjustments after sneakily researching images for reference, but I just became more and more confused to the point where the bust just became inflated spheres. Then the product planner came in with a follow-up request. I want the left hand to be tugging the fur and lifting up her breast, which made the task much harder. It's been a while since I looked down the never-ending road of sculpting and searching for an unknown ideal. Did you enjoy this behind-the-scenes video on the creation of Darkstalkers Morrigan BISHOUJO statue? The next episode will feature the painting process. It will be full of insider takes on the creative process of painting. The illustration for Darkstalkers Felicia BISHOUJO statue will also be revealed. Stay tuned!